Hi, I'm Jim and I want to welcome you to the second series of the Dog Gym training videos on basic obedience, where we're going to cover how to get you and your dog to perform basic obedience tasks such as sits, downs, waits, recalling your dog to you when they're off the lead, and many others. If you haven't already looked at the first series on foundation, I would encourage you to do so because it will give you a good understanding and provide you with that foundation as to why your dog is acting in the way it is and how to plan your training sessions to get the most out of them. For each simple task in this series, I'm going to be demonstrating how to perform the task with my own dogs, and I'm also going to look at some of the following elements for each task we teach. So, a recommended body language sign, a recommended verbal cue, a suggested reward, things to consider as tips, things to avoid when teaching the task, and a suggested training plan for improving the task and teaching your dog to perform it in all different locations. Before we get into the basic obedience, let's first introduce our demonstrators, Maverick and Jake. They've both made an appearance in the foundation course, but we didn't really properly introduce them then. So here we go. This is Maverick. He's a 2-year-old Staffordshire Bull Terrier who's recently started his training with us. And here is Jake. Jake is our search and rescue dog. He'll be 8 this year, that's in 2020. And he is a chocolate coloured Labrador Retriever. That's about as far as I'm prepared to go with labels, just to merely mention the breeds for interest, not to describe temperament. Both of these dogs are going to be helping me to demonstrate how to teach your own dog basic obedience. We are also going to have Valor. He is a Labrador, Fox Red Labrador Retriever, and he's only 6 months old. He's just a puppy, and it'll be fun to watch how he takes on the basic obedience tasks as we progress through. It would be fantastic to see photographs and videos of you all practicing along with us, so please do feel free to post those pictures and videos on our Facebook page at facebook.com/doggymtraining, all one word. So, just before we get going, hopefully you're prepared and in the right frame of mood to continue. You know what rewards are valuable to your dog, and you've got that varying array of rewards on hand to help you with the training. Ask yourself, is your dog ready and raring to go? Are your food rewards going to be valuable enough, or have you just fed the dog? Is your dog too tired, too energetic? Before you start, it's important to know whether they're ready for the training. If they are tired, then let them have a rest before you start training them. If they're too full of beans, take them out for a quick walk or some exercise. Remember, don't set yourself up to fail here. It's no good trying to train a dog that isn't ready for being trained. You won't get the best out of it, and you won't get that learning to take place. Okay, so let's get into this. The first task we're going to teach is the sit. The sit is probably the most common command given to dogs, and there are a whole heap of ways that you can teach it to your dog. The method that I prefer, and I'm going to teach now, is the treat lure method. Taking a treat in your hand, you're going to place it near the nose of your standing dog, and then you're going to use the command sit, spoken in a confident and calm way, making sure that you don't sound too uncomfortable saying the command. So what I mean here is that there's no need to sound too different from your usual vocal tone. The tone of voice should be fun, not too low, not too growly, and not too screechy or excitable, so you don't want to be going sit and getting grumpy with your dog. That is not the aim here. The aim is somewhere in the middle. I recommend using also a body language sign for sits. My preferred sign is to hold one arm up, to clench my fist, and to use my forefinger and point it upwards. Our as soon as your dog's bottom touches the floor, in a happy, "I can't believe it, you're amazing" tone, we're going to immediately mark the completion of that task with a yes or a "yes, good sit," and then allow that dog to take the treat reward. Okay, so some of the things that you want to avoid here are allowing your dog to jump up. This usually happens if the treat's held up too high. So make sure it's nearer the edge of the nose so that they're not snatching and jumping up to try and get it. Allowing your dog to snatch the reward is another thing you want to avoid. I would recommend a separate exercise if your dog is doing this, which involves feeding the dog treats one at a time at mealtime and removing the treat each time the dog snatches by turning your hand quickly away from the dog. And I generally introduce a gently command at this point too, and praise the dog for taking treats slowly and carefully. Say no to the dog when they snatch, and keep repeating that until they start to understand gently means to take the treats slowly out of your hand. This third thing that you want to really avoid here is rewarding your dog if their bottom comes off the floor. What we only want to do is to reward the sit when they're in that sit position, so just be cautious of allowing themselves that treat if they're in the wrong position. We want to train nice, confidently, concisely, consistently every time, so that they're getting the right position and they're not going to be in the wrong position and think that that's what you're after. So be vigilant on that. Only give them that treat where they're in that correct position. If you don't, then you'll slow up the training process here. The next thing to avoid here is to saying the command too many times. So sit, 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 sit. I often see that in some of my customers when they come to dog training classes at first. Sit only needs to be said once, maybe twice if you think the dog's not heard you. The aim is always to speak the command once and then wait for compliance. If they're not listening to you, make sure your dog is focused on you. Show them you've got the treat. When you've got their focus, sit, nice, calm and confident way. The aim should always be to speak that command once and then wait for compliance. So if you're finding your dog loses interest, that's usually an indication that the treat that's on offer isn't of a high enough value to your dog. Let's look now at ways of how we can improve that sit. Once you've managed to get your dog to sit repeatedly following the method we've just described, begin to slowly increase the time before the reward is given to the dog. So continue to mark the completed task immediately, so say good sit straight away, and then add some praise and count to 3 and then reward. So what I mean here is you ask the dog to sit. That's a good sit as soon as they sit, and then what we're doing is we're counting to 3 in our heads, 2, 3, and then rewarding the dog. So once they've remained seated for about 3 seconds, you can then start to increase the time before you reward the dog each time. Let's look at increasing time then, because we're going to use this method all the way through this training series. So now is as good as any time to talk about increasing time values in dog training. It's no good increasing the time to 30 seconds and hope that your dog stays where they are. They're not likely to, especially if there are distractions all around them. So get your dog to stay in one place for 30 seconds. You'll really need to build this up gradually. Start low and start at 3 to 4 seconds, and then repeat this until the dog is consistently performing 3 to 4 seconds. Then increase the time value slowly to say 7 seconds. It is important to be accurate with this and time it, so I would recommend you use a watch. Don't guess. As soon as your dog reaches the new goal that you've set, mark that behaviour and reward them. Don't look at the dog and think, oh, they're looking really good here, they've got to 7 seconds, I'm going to leave them a little bit longer, because if you do that, it's undoubtedly going to result in the dog moving and then preventing the learning from taking place. It's really important to stick to that target time. Repeat that target time regularly until the dog is consistently performing it before you move on. If you add in other variables in the environment, for example, change the location or increase the distractions that are around, then reduce the time that you're at temporarily until the dog is consistently performing the task in the new location at that new time. Then gradually increase your time again. So now we can increase the time as far as we want to. We should see a dog who's repeatedly remaining in a sit for a good length of time, and we haven't even looked at teaching wait yet. How good is that? Okay, once we've managed to get our dog to sit and stay for about 30 seconds, we're now going to improve the sit by introducing some more distance between us and the dog. So teaching a dog to perform a task at distance, that's something else that we need to build up gradually. To get your dog comfortable with being away from them when you're asking them to perform a task, you need to build that up slowly. You can't go straight to the other side of the garden and then expect your dog to stay where you left it. So to build up to that distance, we slowly increase the distance from one pace, then two, then three, and we consolidate the training at each set amount of distance. So we train sit repeatedly at one pace away, and then we train at 2 paces until our dog is performing it consistently and continues to, and then we continue to increase the distance until we've gotten it to where we want it to be. If at any point we find that the dog is not staying on the spot that we left it and it's moving towards us, we should go then back to a distance that they were comfortable to wait, and then we increase the reward value before then slowly increasing the distance again. So the dog is more likely to wait because it knows that better reward is on offer. This process should take days to weeks to increase to a longer distance. If you try increasing that distance too quickly, then you're just going to struggle to get the dog to perform consistently, and it will take longer for you to achieve a further distance in your training. While we're teaching our dogs to sit and stay sitting when we're not immediately stood next to them, we should also train this at varying locations. Now, I suppose it's as good a time as any to remember back to the segment that we did on generalisation in the foundation course. Remember, dogs don't generalise very well, so vary the environment that you're in gradually. If you find your dog isn't performing in a sit, first think to yourself, have I changed too many variables in that environment? Don't get frustrated with them. Instead, go back to where the training was working, do some more sits, and gradually change those environmental variables. And also remember, when our dogs are struggling to perform a task, go back into training mode. Train your dog how to do the task in the different location. Don't get upset when it doesn't pass your tests because you're testing and not training. Don't test, train. Finally, if you find your dog isn't concentrating on you and it's too distracted, change the reward value to a higher one, and that normally has a desired effect. But if it doesn't, then reduce the number of distractions in the training environment and then gradually build them back up over a longer period of time. Okay, let's look at the next task, and that's going to be down. Down, and teaching down is a little bit more tricky than sit. Not all dogs are comfortable lying down on command. Some breed of dogs don't lie down on command very easily at all. Greyhounds, lurchers tend to not want to lie down, so it is hard to teach them to do that. That doesn't mean it's not achievable for you and your dog, it just means that you need to keep practicing. And one way of teaching a dog to do a task is to wait for them to do that task naturally on their own, and then you say the command words to associate it with the task they're performing. That's a really good way of teaching down initially if you're struggling with the next method, but all you need to do is wait for your dog to lie down naturally, and then you say good down and offer them a small reward. So the method that I generally use for getting a dog to lie down is to take a treat. In a similar way to teaching sit, I use the treat as a lure, and then I first ask the dog to sit, and then we slowly, if it has to be really slow in some cases, we move that treat from the end of their nose to the top of their chest, and then slowly move it down the chest until the dog lies down. You may also need to bring the treat slowly away from the dog's chest at the end of this, just to get them to lie down and stretch forward rather than crumple up in the middle. If the dog's bottom comes up, then one good method to use is to actually do this, but to do it with your leg arched. So you bring the treat under the arch of your leg. So sit on the floor, arch your leg, bring the treat through the arch of your leg, so that your dog physically has to lower itself down into that down position. As soon as they're in that down position, you immediately mark that behaviour with a good down, and then you reward the dog with the treat that's in your hand. If your dog's struggling with down, remember to increase the value of the reward, and remember, move that treat really slowly. If you move it too fast, then it's likely that they'll stand back up again. In the same way as we did with the sit, it's really important to increase the time before you reward. So the distance as well that we're rewarding the dog from, and then of course remembering the segment we did on generalisation, where you need to change the variables in the training locations. One of the biggest variables you can change here is to change the floor surface. Be really mindful that getting your dog to lie down on an uncomfortable hard surface is going to take a lot more patience and practice than it is to get it to lie down on a nice rug or soft carpet. Again, as with all commands, it's important to use body language signs, and for this I like to use a flat palm pointing downwards or a forefinger pointing downwards. It's up to you which you use, just pick one and then stick with it. Don't keep changing between two, so that slows the learning process down. A good tip here to keep your dog in the down position as you slowly increase the distance you are from them is to throw the treat between the front two paws, but you really need a good aim to avoid the dog from getting up to find the treat when you've missed their front paws. The goal here is to keep the dog in the down position as you move away from them. Because we've initially started training down with a treat running down the chest, some dogs will learn that down means to lie down, but only while your hand is next to them with a treat. So to increase our distance from them, we need to overcome this by teaching the dog that down means lie down wherever the handler is. By training with a body language sign, the dog should be going into the down position even if we're stood up. Once they're down, we can drop the treat to them as a reward. From this we can then move to stepping away, adding some distance in and throwing the treat to them. This should slowly prevent the dog from getting up each time to come to you for that treat that you've got in your hand. If you are struggling with this, then you can use a lead to attach the dog to something to stop them from moving to you, and then slowly increase the distance, but you should only reward when they're in the down position. So make sure that even though they've walked towards you on the end of the lead, that they're in the down before you reward them. Use the body language down, wait for them to comply. When they lie down, good down. And obviously you can increase the distance where they can't come to you for the treat, and then you can throw the treat to them. To get your dog to stand back up after lying down, take a treat, place it between the thumb and the palm of your hand, then offer the treat to the dog. As they go for it, move it away from the nose and slightly upwards, and at the same time give a clear stand command. The palm held towards the dog, but it should be pointing either to the left or the right of the dog, as opposed to up or down like the wait body language. This then will form the body language for stand. As your dog then gets used to standing up in this way and begins to associate the command word stand and the body language with the standing position, you can then phase out the treat that's in your hand and instead opt to throw the treat to the dog as we did for the down command. You can then start to introduce some time before rewarding and then some distance from the dog whilst asking them to stand. It's advisable before performing the stand that you have achieved a good down at a distance before you start moving into the stand command. If you find your dog keeps getting up and coming over towards you for the treat, then you can use a lead again to stop the dog from reaching you, and then repeat the training until your dog understands that you require them to stand up but to stay in one position and not to move towards you. Remember, it does take time and patience for your dog to understand more complex commands, so if your dog is struggling to understand what you want from it in this task, ask yourself, are you using a clear and consistent command word, clear and consistent body language, and make sure that you stay calm and confident. And if your dog is finding it too hard, then go back a stage and start using that treat as a lure between your thumb and your palm. Now I'm going to have a quick look at vocal commands, so vocal cues. We've not really spoken yet about vocal cues in any depth, so when you're asking your dog to do something, these are the principles that you need to follow. Be calm and relaxed, be confident and use a happy voice, don't shout or use low growling tones when you're speaking the command word, and be clear and consistent. Use the same command each time, don't change it. So for example, don't ask your dog to lie down, lay down, lie, lay. Those are all different words that you can use for that command, but your dog will find it harder to learn that command if you keep changing it. So stick to one command, for example, down. It is okay to use commands in a sentence if you're clear with the command word. So if, for example, here you could say, "Hey Jake, could you sit for me?" And you know, if you want to speak to your dog in sentences, that's fine, provided you make it sure that that command word is nice and clear. However, I would recommend not doing this early on, as it does help your dog to learn more quickly if all they're hearing is the one command word given each time. Don't repeat the command more than twice, and aim to use it only once. Remember, reinforce that with some body language sign. Hold that sign until the dog is performing the correct task. If it isn't performing the task, then up that reward on offer and go back to using the reward as a lure and trying to train it again. Wait for them to learn the body language as well as the vocal cue, and you should eventually not even have to use a vocal cue. The body language should be enough. Fantastic if your dog is all the way over to the other side of the dog walking field and you want them to sit and they can see that body language from the distance. Okay, quick summary. We've looked at sits, nice firm body language, pointing finger upwards, nice clear command word, wait for the dog to comply. We start off by luring that treat over the dog's nose, and when the backside touches the ground, immediately mark that with a good sit and reward the dog with a treat and some praise and even some play early on. We then looked at down with the body language of the finger pointing downwards. And then we use the lure to take the treat down the chest of the dog and slightly out at the bottom to get them to lie down nicely for us. As soon as they're in that position, good down, and reward with the treat, praise and some play. If your dog is struggling to go down and the bottom keeps coming up, then you can use your arched leg and have the dog go under that leg so that keeps their bottom down. We then looked at stand. The body language for this is palm facing the dog, fingers pointing to the left or the right. And then we use the treat initially to lure the dog to move into that position with the treat under the thumb and the palm, and then slowly up and away from the dog to get them to stand up. Good stand, reward, and then lots of praise and play. To progress the training, we're going to teach this in all different locations so that the dogs get used to performing the sits, the downs and the stands in all different locations, and the issue of generalisation doesn't become a problem for us. Once they are performing that in all those different environments, then we can claim that the dog is fully trained in those commands. We're then going to train all of those, the sit, the down and the stand in different locations with increasing levels of different distractions available to us, building up that slowly so that we can then claim our dog is capable of doing sits, downs or stands in all of these different areas, and that they're solid when we ask them to do that. They should find that easy to comply then because you train them in all those different environments. It should be worth it for them because they're going to get that treat from you. If we find we're struggling, then we're going to be calm, confident, make sure our clear and consistent body language and vocal cue is correct, and we're going to then up the reward value to keep the dog interested in wanting to do the task for us. Then we're going to build on each of these tasks by increasing the time it takes for the dog to receive the reward, thereby increasing the time they stay in the position for us. And then we're going to increase the distance that we are from them so that they can perform that task wherever we are, be them across the field from us, and we offer them the body language. They don't even need to hear us if we've got them cued up right for the body language, and they should just sit for us wherever they are. That's it for part one. Be sure that you practice your sits, your downs and stands with the ultimate goal of being able to perform those commands whilst your dog is not next to you. Remember to build up each stage slowly and avoid testing your dog. For most dogs this will take a matter of weeks rather than days, so don't expect too much from a dog, particularly a young pup, and don't overdo your training sessions. If you do have a puppy, aim for about 15 minutes for each session, spaced throughout the day, punctuated with some fun, some games, some food and some sleep. That's the dog, not you. You have got lots of time to spend planning your next training session. Remember, if your dog isn't getting it, then you need to look at yourself and the way you are training before getting upset with your dog. Go back to where they were understanding you, reduce the distractions in that environment, increase the rewards, and then add lots and lots of patience and understanding. Finally, don't forget our Facebook page. It would be fantastic to see how you and your dog are getting on with performing these tasks. So please do post your training videos at facebook.com/doggymtraining. Thanks for listening. See you at part 2.